Yeah, well, no, I'm really, because that's the question I've been asked a lot, is how you were able to trust me. And I hadn't even thought about it. I was like, why wouldn't you trust me? But then I was like, oh, that's a good point. And I wouldn't mind hearing your thoughts on that. And I'm sure people would be interested. And yeah, like I think I, again, hadn't really thought of it from that perspective in our relationship. But yeah, very much, I think not having that external care, I took a lot more responsibility for resting, for just, I think, my own like energy and holding my energy tighter than I think if we'd had outside care. I remember with the midwives, like kind of letting them tell me how I was doing instead of really going, well, how am I doing? You know,
it's like rent a self-agency.
Yeah, like I think that's one of the reasons for me I really wanted to do this, was like, how honest and truthful can I be with myself, and how self-reflective can I be through this experience? And like we're talking about with ceremony, can I hold that space and that container for myself in order that we bring forth this baby? And I believed I could, but yeah, just I think doing it for me felt very empowering and very healing. So
it's good. It's bringing up a lot for me why I was able to trust. So there's probably a couple of reasons. Do you want to grab me?
No, avocado.
Avocado. Come here, my little dolphin. One is, I mean, I don't really know much about like the free birthing community or free birthing societies and all that kind of stuff, but I know that. Oh, you're right, buddy. Oh yeah, chasing gas, the life of new parents. Which hole will that gas come out of? Oh,
there it is.
Good, that's the hole we want.
The up top hole.
So, like anything that's like, oh, free birth, and it's getting, like, it's getting a lot of attention, and it kind of has to have its own little like branding, and I guess it's a little PR moment where it's a bit provocative and it gets attention, and that's just the nature of when things come into the limelight and get advocated for, which then tracks back to the advocacy of like, hey, maybe we don't need to be intervening in birth in the same extent and maybe overreacting and treating it like an emergency. That's maybe where I see what's happening. But of course, the shiny bit is going to turn into somewhat of an ideology. And I know that your approach wasn't. What's that?
You've got spear.
Oh, yeah.
There's a cloth right now. Newborn spear. Yeah.
I mean, I'm going somewhere with this. It's a really important one. I knew maybe, we did a free birth course with someone who was advocating for and teaching the principles of free birth, I would say really quite responsibly.
Late in the piece too. So that was with Jonia from Wild Pregnancy and Free Birth, I think her business is called. Well, or Radical Birth Collective, maybe. I'll link to it in the show notes. But we did that in February and we were due in April. So
yeah, it wasn't like that wasn't a pivotal piece. I mean, it was more about your approach. I know how much work you've done, and I know the way you approach life you don't fall and get sucked in to a community that has an ideology and a set of values and a rule and right and wrongs and rules, because I do know already that there is people out there who do have a case also, I should say, for why free birth needs to be like a standard. And I think it's an interesting conversation, but I also kind of think there's a place where that's not really appropriate for everyone. And I knew your approach wasn't just like, I found the way and I'm going to just use that external set of drivers and ways that is right for birth and take on their rote talking points and then just bring those into our space, because I would find that a violation as well, personally. So I knew you were going through your own process and you're a smart cookie. And I knew that you were in touch with your body, not just going to get sucked into where this is what we're doing because I think it's right and I like that other people are doing it and they made some good points and it makes sense and it is logical, because although I think going through periods like that when your mind can't handle generating its own understanding of how to, or you don't maybe have a connection to your body in a way that's intimate enough to really generate your own strong conviction and you need to use external ones. I don't really necessarily think birth is always the time when that should be what dominates, that external ideology. So I knew you weren't in that state. So I was like, I trust you. So I knew if we got to a point, if you had feelings of maybe we needed to pivot or go in another direction, you'd have no problem because you're prioritizing connection to Bob, your body, our family. So I was like, I knew it was adaptable. I knew I wouldn't be able, we'd get down the end of the road and I'd be like, if I started feeling like, oh shit, you haven't acknowledged this and your ideology has created a blind spot for you. I know that's not you.
Yeah.
So that was the primary reason. And I knew you weren't doing this kicking back against a system. I knew you weren't rejecting something and therefore defining what you wanted to do based on like a previous trauma or general trauma that the medical system which is very real, just the excess amount of trauma and intervention that the Western medical system has inflicted on women and babies and families with horrific. We get the stories quite often, and naturally obstetricians and that system could give me the opposite. We get these tragic stories, so I'm not saying it's a one-way street, but from where we live, you could see it could be easy for us to formulate a birth plan that's in complete rejection, and because we're cynical or whatever it is about something. And I knew you weren't in that place, which makes it really, really easy to like fall in there with you as well. I think they're probably the two primary reasons why I was able to trust you fully. And then there is just the inherent trust I have, which sometimes is a leap of faith, which men should have. Fathers, I think, should definitely go and explore. It doesn't mean, I think sometimes that, although I don't want to come up, I'm not advocating for being a complete beta male. I really just don't think that's useful. I think a men's instincts should be respected. But in this sense of going down,